Those are the 2 weakest claps we have ever done.
I think I was delayed on my clap too a tad, but that's all right.
Well, I was getting ready to raise my claps, my clappers. What's we're calling hands at now, over my head, and it just goes pap. And then I'm like, fuck, nice. I'm embarrassed now because this clap is just a shame to everything we've done. And then you go, then just.
Hey man, we're tired.
We are tired. We've got no clap energy. Nobody knows what we're talking about. We clap. I've probably mentioned this. We clap before we start the podcast every time as we enter through the fire and flames of the dragon. Mm-hmm. We do a little clap just to, neutralize our audio.
It teleports us into the podcast realm.
Yeah, it's a semantic. Is that the requirement for a spell that has to
somatic?
Make your hands somatic. Semantics, Ryan. Leave me alone. I'm on a roll today, man.
No, I think you're just loopy tired, man.
I'm not loopy tired. I guess I had a work day. It's been a day. How was your week? Well, not anymore. The week it just started, Brian. It's Monday. It's
true, but now. Yeah, but how was your week from the last podcast, man?
It was crazy, dude. I was
really
crazy in the term that it was like not crazy at all. If that makes any sense whatsoever to anybody out there, probably not.
Not following.
Not following. I just have dove deeper and deeper into the whole of VTubers.
Yeah, I think you mentioned this last week too.
Oh, it's gonna keep coming up. But previously, I was watching One Piece like hours on end, like 2 weeks ago. And now
Braxton is very much the type of person that once you find something you like, that's your life for the next couple weeks.
Yeah, which sucks because the previous thing that I just dedicated a bunch of time into, it's gone. Which is particularly hard when you are a DM for some things and you're writing for D&D for another campaign that's coming up. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you get off topic a lot. So my staples, I can only ever have two. One of them has to be writing for D&D. The other is whatever the hell I want to do, video game, watching stuff. Now I'm just, ooh boy, these VTubers. I went down a rabbit hole of information last night, and I've learned truths that I should not have learned.
Oh no.
But I can't mention them because it's taboo. So you'll have to get involved in the hobby yourself. But that was my last week. It's just VTuber hell. Wow. What about you?
Well, my last week was not the most eventful. I did get my girlfriend got a desk, and normally when you buy a desk and you're picking it up yourself, you should probably measure it ahead of time. Make sure it fits into the vehicle you're picking it up in.
Oh no!
We go to IKEA, and IKEA's not that close, so we made a trip.
What desk did you get from IKEA?
No, it was my girlfriend. My girlfriend got the desk. It wasn't mine.
What kind of desk?
I don't know, man. It's in Swedish.
IKEA desks they have a cult following, man. There's people out there. It's a nice desk. Is it the Freddy? Okay? Is it the Jerkin? What was it?
The Jerkin. That's not Swedish.
I don't know what it was, but there's some names.
No, I don't know. It's a nice desk. Okay.
All right.
It looks good. It's white. Right. Whatever. It feels cool. Okay. It's big enough for what she needs it for.
Do you have drawers?
No drawers.
Okay.
But we get to IKEA. We made a day of it. We went and hung out, did some other stuff, shopped. So also went to the sushi place.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was that day. I went to this cool kind of revolving sushi bar, and that was fun because I've never been to one, and I did not expect so many cool things to be coming up. I grab it, eat it, put it in my mouth, and then go to the next thing.
Hold on, let me ask you something.
Sure.
The first plate, did you grab it?
Yeah.
Did you get it out of the thing?
Yeah.
You didn't have a single struggle pulling the plate out?
It's funny you mentioned that. My girlfriend had a lot of trouble doing it. She couldn't do it, so every time you go past her, she's like, "Can you get that for me?" And so grab it easy.
There are two people in this world: those who can pull things out of the rotating sushi bar trays, and those who cannot. I am the latter.
It was fun though, man. I really liked it.
It's a good time. That exact chain you went to is also in Japan. Kuda Sushi.
Yeah, so it's got props.
That's good stuff. Yeah, and you play a little game with the plates you put in.
Yeah, we only made it to 12 plates, and bless you, JD. Every 5 plates, you get more of the story, and so I'm not gonna know what happened.
Nope, I don't think it ever really ends. Actually, Though if you ever remember, I've got 2 little inklings on my keychain. That's where that came from. Those
oh, really?
From back in Japan. Nobody knows what I'm talking about, but inkling from Splatoon. When they go into little squid form, I've got 2 of those on my keychains, and it's a good time. It's a good time.
So IKEA, right?
Yes.
We get to IKEA, and we roll up to the pickup spot, and I noticed, looking to my left and to my right, all the cars here are big pickup trucks, and I got a small little Honda Accord
that you just got fixed.
That I just got fixed, yeah. I'm kind of getting a little self-conscious. Yeah, I'm thinking, okay, everyone here's got big stuff. I mean, we're just getting a desk. What's going to be the problem? So they bring it out, and we're putting it in, and they leave. They leave. We're like, it's just one package. I can fit this in my car, and I'm shoving it in, and I get it just where it fits inside the door on my left. I'm putting it in, and then it pops out the other door. So she goes to the other side, and we push it in, and it pops out the other door that I was at.
Oh, no.
It is literally 2 inches too big to fit into this vehicle.
You couldn't like angle it, tilt it, do a little vertical
We ended
action?
up angling it to where it was going into the front right seat where I'm not sitting, and she had to sit in the back underneath the desk.
She's like, "Hey, honey, got my new girlfriend. It's this cardboard box with a desk inside of it."
Yeah, it was rough, but
well, you got it in there.
Made it happen. Yeah, and then I got to walk around IKEA. I've never been in IKEA before.
Was it? You're Swedish, aren't you?
No.
No.
My buddy is though.
Okay.
Was
it everything you hoped for?
The cafe was closed, unfortunately, because of COVID.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
There's cafes in IKEA?
Have you ever been to IKEA?
I've never been in IKEA, man. I don't go outside anymore.
Okay, next time you're here, we're making a day trip to IKEA.
Hell yeah. It'll probably be in November or something.
It's worth it. It's cool. It almost feels like you see something that you never thought you'd want in your house, and then you want it in your house just because it looks cool.
Well, you're looking for a desk too. I'm surprised you didn't buy one.
Yeah, I want an L desk. They didn't have any L desks.
Those are good, especially when you're a loser like you are.
Yeah, I have a fake L desk right here. I just have 2 desks that make an L.
Yeah, I thought about getting an L desk, but it would have covered up my Wendy's, so I decided to not do that. But there was we could, I would say, talk about a lot of stuff that's been going on this week in terms of D&D as well.
Yeah, some big came out this week.
We had our session too, which, interestingly enough, we had an encounter that I thought was going to fuck us up, but it didn't.
Yeah.
Which is a good time. And also, speaking of that, we were discussing on our Discord quite a lot, actually, this week with our good friend Kenneth, who you guys have heard on the podcast. And hello, speaking of Kenneth, we also have names. He's Ryan.
He's Braxton.
And this is the Dungeon Crawl. Today we're going to talk a little bit about a lot of things. This is one of our waffle casts that we haven't really done in a long time, but we've been discussing a lot on the Discord, like I was saying previously, about Rime of the Frostmaiden, balancing, some stuff about settings versus campaigns, and I think we just kind of couldn't decide on a single thing to talk about.
Yeah, this is going to be kind of all over the place cast.
All over the place. We'll try to keep it structured, but to begin, kind of talking about that first fight that we had, we don't have to digest it or anything, but it felt easier to me, though one player had the key to the non-combat solution, so we can leave it at that. But balance, especially like early on, I think can be some of the hardest stuff in any medium.
Oh, yeah.
Like for video games too, because it's when you have the least amount of health most of the time, if it's a game that you don't die in one hit already. This late game, usually numbers get really bloated and attacks, even though they do a ton of damage, don't kill you outright. But when you have 1 or 2 health, which you probably don't, but if you have like 3 to 5, which is a typical number, you can die in like 2 hits to anything.
Yeah, I recently started playing Pathfinder Kingmaker, which basically
playing?
Yeah, it's a PC game. It's a CRPG, like in the same aspects of like Divinity and Baldur's Gate and that type of stuff. And it obviously, by the name, it mimics Pathfinder to a T, more or less. And it's if you starting at level 1, if you have some bad rolls, and you can actually, the rolls actually happen on the game. If you had some bad rolls, you will die. That's just how it is.
Why haven't I heard about this game? There's always so much hype about making a perfect D&D game, but this Pathfinder one exists?
Yeah, it's been out for 2 years, man. It's great.
Oh, that's that recent? Are the graphics like, oh, it looks old, or is it kind of...
I mean, it looks great.
I need to check that out then.
Yeah, Pathfinder Game Maker.
It does have that sort of brutal feeling when you make your character in D&D.
Yes.
I mean, really, your health, it can range anywhere from like 3, even 2 to like 12 or so.
Yeah. For a starting level. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So figuring that stuff out is kind of wonky. And I think the first thing that came to your mind when we were talking about balancing, when we decided on what we wanted to discuss here, was Death House, that first introductory quest or adventure for Curse of Strahd.
Yeah, they released it for free, and you can find it anywhere. Death House, or just look up Death House 5e, Death House, Curse of Strahd, whatever. It's on the Wizards of the Coast website. It's the Curse of Strahd introductory adventure. And it's hard.
It is. The first time I heard about this from a friend is we ran a campaign for Strahd. And this is back when I had no idea that I was currently in a Strahd campaign. The irony is not lost on me. Do not worry. They were like, hey, we're doing a Strahd thing. Have you ever heard of Death House? I'm like, no, I've never done a Strahd campaign. Ha, ha, ha. And they said, oh, that's great. We died. I'm sorry? It definitely threw me off guard because in all of the games that I've played so far, which it hasn't been that under that many different DMs, mostly Ryan. But all the stuff that we've done, I haven't died. There's been a couple of deaths, but people have been resurrected. Yeah. We've talked about death in D&D a little bit here and there. But I've never outright died at the beginning of a campaign.
I'd imagine it would hurt.
Yeah. I mean, if you're in a group like us.
Worse later.
Yeah. That's after you've created your background, you've got connected to people. But if you're like me or our group, we wrote pretty lengthy backgrounds, or at least got invested in our characters before we began, which is not something you want to do before you have your session 0 with people to find out what kind of game you're playing. Because if you're starting out and your early game with these people is straight off the bat D&D mechanics, where if you begin and you die, you're dead, you kind of want to be prepared for that. It's a mindset you need to enter. So to start off with balancing, that's that session 0 discussion to understand what your players are looking for.
Definitely.
Again. And then the discussion from there leads them, once you understand that, and then it comes into your lap as a DM to throw things together. So I guess I want to jump back in time to when you were first messing around with monsters. And I guess the 2 instances of, or 3, you've had a couple, you've DM'd for people for the first time a couple of times. In those instances, how did you go around balancing? What was your philosophy?
Well, I think it's interesting to point out first what the DM's guide says. So, like, that's what I read when I first got started, like how to get into it. I mean, if I'm going to be a dungeon master, I should probably read the guide, right? So if this is your first time going into it, you're going to see 2 very important paragraphs and sentences that I have since disagreed with in a sense. Mainly the first one, where it says that each adventuring day, a party of 3 to 5 adventurers should, in theory, be able to handle 6 to 8 medium or hard encounters.
Dang.
And they specifically say these hard encounters, they measure it out by XP and whatnot. And you can go and look at that in the table. But I guess it depends on the party and the players and the type of game you like to run. But to me, that seems an absurd amount.
Well, first off, the thing that makes this seem even crazier to me is that they're considering these like combat encounters as well.
That's the problem.
My God, because we've outlined at some point as well previously in the podcast that encounters aren't just combat. There's things that you encounter in sentence, however you want to look at it that way. For us,
we tend to have in a normal quote-unquote adventuring day, we'll have a handful, myriad of role-playing encounters, and then at the most, I think we've probably had 3 or 4 in a day. unless we're counting a dungeon, like going through a temple or something, like the snake temple that we had a long time ago, that was probably 5 or 6 different encounters in that one day, maybe more, because you guys also fought something on an island.
It's a lot of moments for me to lose my spell slots, and a lot of encounters for people to be like, bruh, can you use your spells? No.
But it does mention that over the course of a full adventuring day, the party will likely need to take 2 short rests, so that would help for the warlock.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that helps too. So, but, oh man, I guess it depends on how quickly you go. Our game, for those of you that don't know, if this is your first time coming in here, we are heavily roleplay based. We have combat with all the bells and whistles in terms of a player map, like a dungeon map or whatever we're looking at. We use distance. We do use movement, etc. So if you've come from like a live play show where they do theater of the mind, we're pretty traditional in terms of combat. But we do go pretty slow in terms of planning things. So having 6 encounters in my mind for our group. Yeah. Oh boy. And maybe that's why you have that opinion now, Ryan. You think that might have a hand in it?
No, mine is that's, to me, a lot of combat. And it depends, again, on the type of game you're running. But for me, if you're having that much combat, then the role play stuff that I like is having a backside. It's on the forefront. It's not the main portion. I like the combat to influence the role playing, to influence the combat. And there's kind of this give and take there. I don't like having one being higher than the other.
Okay, so do you think that in terms of balance and difficulty, more combat always equals more difficulty?
Yes and no. I think if you're going to have one, let's say you say forget this if 6 to 8 medium or hard encounters and just go for deadly encounters. Those can be fun. They definitely are more on the edge of your seat, but they're also far more swingy. If if your one character is getting hit by this CR10 guy and they have 1 or 2 actions and it's just slamming into your player, then it's one turn could kill that player. And I think that's the difficulty with just going deadly encounters. You do want to find a good mix, so you're not just killing the players in one turn and they're not just killing your monster in one turn. And if you're just having, you can go listen to our combat episode for more in depth on this type of stuff. But if you're just having this one combat, this one creature, you got to give it extra actions. You got to give it legendary actions or action oriented monsters, that kind of philosophy, instead of just doing it as written.
Yeah, this brings to thought for me.
But it does make that creature harder, so prepare yourself.
Yeah. So in video games mostly, I get annoyed when there's a modding community and everything in terms of like making the game harder. All they do is make things one-shot you, and you have to hurt them a butt ton. Now, I know most of these people aren't game designers, so that's the least complex way to add difficulty to a game. So if you're modding Fallout, you're modding Skyrim, and they have...
Bullet Sponge sucks.
Yeah, Bullet Sponge does suck. So you've got to whack the guy 43 times, and if you even allow them to stay in your range so they can hit you with their weapon once, bing, dead. You watch the falling death animation that takes forever.
I've been playing Ghost of Tsushima recently, and that does a fantastic job making it hard. Difficulty makes sense. You do a lot of damage, and they do a lot of damage to you.
Mm-hmm. But then on that time, assets that somebody's prepared might not last as long.
Yeah.
Which is why I think games like Dark Souls exist, where you have a limited health pool, but you have technically a ton of health in the form of Estus. You just can't have it all at once. So your health is kind of equivalent to a boss's when you think about it for Dark Souls, depending on how much Estus or in Bloodborne, etc., whatever the item is, they have, and then the boss has a ton of health. If you think about it from the boss's perspective, they're kind of playing on like easy or normal mode because they hit you and you die really quickly. And that perspective always helps me when I'm trying to balance. How do I make it to where it seems, if that's what I want, evenly matched between the guy that's trying to survive in the combat that's going on right now, that's an enemy, quote unquote, right now, or the players and how they're fighting. Maybe I want it to be a crazy boss and I want them to die in one hit. It just depends.
So, going back to the balancing question that you had, I think it does say should be able to handle these 6 to 8 encounters. Yeah, that doesn't, obviously you don't have to. I would say that sentence should only be used for if you're planning out a dungeon or something.
Mm-hmm.
Think, okay, you have 3 to 5 adventures. Yeah, you have 3 to 5 adventures, and you are planning 6 to 8 encounters in a dungeon, not just specifically out in the wilderness.
Man, I know there's a lot of monsters, but you're sometimes restricted in terms of the environment you have too, right?
Yes. I mean, you could just granted, it won't be that exciting, but a lot of adventures do follow this theme of, okay, you're going at a goblin encampment, and it's like there's a dungeon underneath this goblin encampment. Each room's just going to be filled with goblins with different weapons.
There's your difficulty.
Yeah.
Just throw a bunch of ads in there for your friends to fight on. And I think that could work if D&D, for most people that play, was an automated thing. And it can be if you use Roll20 and you get really great with the not really coding, but entering phrases and dice rolling, and you're only using the resources it has. In Roll20, I think if you pay for it, you can have spells in there. Your characters can have their spell sheets connected, and they can roll stuff quickly. So having like a bunch of fodder that way so that it runs faster and they just click and things happen, it's great. But if there's a ton of goblins, you have to experience each one of them very slowly with your brain, with your words, with your mouth, with your dice, every time you're fighting something. So I don't think that's a good way to balance if you're wanting to have entertaining encounters.
That brings up the second sentence of the DMG, the Dungeon Master's Guide. It says most combat encounters should last 3 rounds on average.
What?
Yeah. That doesn't happen too often.
No. Most of our encounters are like 30 to 40 minutes or more. We've had like a 4 or 5 hour encounter before.
But if we think about it, how many rounds is that? Probably like 10?
That's true. Well, I mean, I guess it depends on your party and how many things are there. If you've got an encounter that's, sticking with the goblin thing, 3 small boys and like a captain or 2 and maybe a boss sitting around there. Like, this is a deadly encounter, I would say, for somebody fighting goblins at that level. You could probably kill the little boys in 1 round with a couple of people if you've got a well-placed AoE. You got another round and a half to work on the captains or something, and then you're struggling to get done in that 3rd encounter, I guess. Maybe it doesn't work too well for a deadly encounter.
Yeah. I'd say on average, ours takes probably 5 or 6 rounds, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, depending on what you're fighting.
Yeah, I haven't thought about it, but if it's not something that's like a massive story point or in the middle of a dungeon that we've been working through, then yeah. How would that translate to, well, I guess that's not really a topic here. I was going to ask how it translated to non-combat encounters, but that's not really what we're talking on today. So with difficulty...
So I just want to answer, to answer the very first question that started all of this, how do I approach, especially starting off, how did I approach balance? I think a lot of it is using your resources, using the Kobold Fight Club or the D&D, D&D Beyond version of that.
Too, yeah.
It kind of helps you, but even still, challenge rating is a very tricky thing because some things hit higher than their challenge rating does. So make sure you don't just toss in a bunch of intellect devours or gas or something. Make sure you understand shadows as well. Make sure you understand exactly what they can do to lower level parties, and understand that you can't just toss 6 of these shadows at them and expect them to survive.
I did toss intellect devours, but I made sure it was really mechanically heavy in terms of fights, and there were lots of ways for them to creatively go around the encounter. That was a lot of fun for me. It was kind of like a horror show. It was like an inking shadow crossing on the ground, and the intellect devours were creeping through it, and they had an NPC jump in there that was getting attacked by it, and they were
something you can do, yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
And the second thing is definitely you learn as you go. You definitely will make encounters that are unbalanced, and I think it takes a skilled DM and a DM that's okay with it to tweak things on the backside. If you know you have definitely done something by making something too hard unintentionally. If you wanted to make it hard, then stick to your guns and make it hard, and don't, pull back your punches. But if it is something you did unintentionally, you're like, oh, this was not supposed to be this, and it's not like they're rolling poorly. It's just you didn't know what this monster can do, and people are about to start dying. And it doesn't feel worth it, then definitely you can dial back on the damage, dial back on the health if you feel comfortable doing that type of stuff.
No matter how much you prepare, if they roll poorly, it's not your fault.
Yes, if that's how the dice are rolling, then unfortunately you might have to stick with it.
Yeah, that's a likely situation, though, for a DM, especially if you use those two resources we mentioned, because you technically don't have to read what they supply. If you just put in the parameters that you're looking for, location and CR, you can just use them right away. Like Ryan said, though, if you're fighting, the combat's going, make sure you look through the stat block. And if you're like, that's a big hit,
yeah,
you can lower the dice roll. They don't know unless they're veterans who will
or
nitpick how you play.
Even separately, like I just put in 4 players at level 9, random deadly encounter. I got a CR 13 monster, just one of them that would go into the swingy territory where either this monster will destroy one character right off the bat, or it'll miss and then the other players will just destroy it on their next turn. If you just got one thing, it all goes back to action economy, and go listen to our combat episode.
Yeah, if you're getting into that, that's one of the problems with those resources, is that it will try to, as efficiently as possible, fill in that space, but you can control it by limiting how big or strong each individual monster will be. So you can say no gigantic monster or no monster that has a CR above this level, which can help you there. But if you're wanting a higher CR monster, obviously you need to push open that parameter, I suppose. But definitely, if you're a DM, try making a couple of player characters on your own and comparing it to the monsters that you have, or just get your players' sheets as well and think about them as a monster that you could throw in as well. You really need to know what it feels like to be a player, especially if you're in the situation that I was and a lot of people have been. I've never played D&D, quote unquote, and my friends want me to DM. So I've got no perspective on being a player. You need to earn that experience and use it. Just like Ryan said, experience is kind of key for balancing. And it's entirely subjective with balancing, because a lot of the opinions centered around it is enjoying the thing that you're doing. And when you bring enjoyment into it, nobody's happy. You can't really make everybody happy unless you just talk about it with everybody for a long time and you find like-minded people.
Yeah, that's why I bring in the fact if your monster is about to kill a player and they're not having fun. Obviously, no player is probably gonna have fun with watching their character die. But if it, sometimes you can tell if it's like, okay, my character is gonna die here. I'm okay with it because they're doing something badass and this is, a big sacrifice. But if it's just you're just demolishing them and they're just seem upset and pissed, then at the end of the day, it is all about fun and enjoyment. And if that's not being obtained, then as a DM, dial back, change something. Maybe instead of killing them, they get captured and they can be saved later,
Well, you got a tired party. They've had their 3 to 4 encounters already, and they're about to get to the big showstopper of the session here. And it's one guy with really strong hits, and he can hit like 3 times total, and your tank of the party is rearing up with his shield, fighting this guy. Like, I'm ready. I've got like 3/4 health. I'm okay. Guy runs up. You roll to hit, and your tank takes the damage. He's at like half health, and he's like, I'm okay. I'm the tank. I can handle this. He hits again, and your guy's like, I've got 1/4 of my health left, but 2 hits. I've never encountered something else that's got a 3rd hit. And then if it's just like the guy gets squashed with another 3rd hit of the club, it's not. You could remove that 3rd hit of the club.
Like I've think to me, I've only killed 2 characters, 2 player characters, and the first one is the reason why I killed it was perfect. I think it fit thematically because
it was a good moment.
You guys, I've mentioned this on a podcast before, but they teleported this guy's quote unquote daughter away from him, and he got rightfully upset, and he just started going to town fighting. He called in his minions and whatnot, and he knocked down one of the players. And normally, you say as a DM, when they're down, move on to someone else. But this guy, in his mind, they had just basically killed his daughter. So he walked over to the unconscious guy on the ground and said, an eye for an eye, or you're coming with me, and stabbed him on the ground and finished it off.
That's literally what you said, an eye for an eye.
Yeah. And the player was okay with it. He wasn't, he felt like it was, it made sense. It was earned.
Mm-hmm. We had a lot of like-minded people there. It was a really good moment too. And funnily enough, that same character, I think we ended up bringing him back.
Yes, he did get resurrected, and then I think he died.
Almost died again.
He almost died again, yeah.
Which was an even more emotional moment.
Yeah.
He just wanted to die.
Well, it was a very valiant character, putting himself in harm's way.
He was a paladin that became an oathbreaker because he died. He's like, my God forsaken me. He let me perish. So, excuse my flatulence.
Oh my God, you're right. Getting choked up over there.
I think people cried during that moment.
It was, yeah. It was so much so that one of my players afterwards, like, what was the song that you used right there?
So that's the sweet spot with difficulty and balancing, is if you find it just right, even if it's a little too hard, it feels so earned, especially if the story's going well. That's what Ryan has always done.
And if it turns around and the players win, they feel good about it.
Yeah, man. You got hands sweaty, mom spaghetti, you're fighting the guy, and you're in Dark Souls, your heart's a pumping. Imagine that, like, around the table, and everybody's there, and each person takes their turn. It's even more prolonged. It's a good time.
Well, you counterspell that last spell, and everyone goes nuts.
God, counterspell, man. Oh, they have a whole episode about counterspell. Ooh, boy. Kenneth's like, ooh, Braxton, don't you talk about it right now. So what I want to circle back to is with Death House and talk about how Wizards of the Coast kind of manages their balancing, especially for early on in campaign settings or adventures like this. And what better thing to talk about than Rime of the Frostmaiden, which has been getting some flack online, as I've heard from Kenneth. So we'll get more into light first adventure spoilers in the terms of the structuring of it.
Yeah, we'll stay off of names and stuff, but just specifically kind of stat-wise what we're talking about here.
So no heavy story spoilers here. If you're waiting as a player to stay completely clean, you don't have to worry. You'll be okay. You'll hear most of this stuff in the exposition. So Rime of the Frostmaiden, the first thing I heard about it from our friend Kenneth was that how they created the first adventure, one of the first quests, you can kill your players. And I was like, okay, well, I mean, yeah, you can kill your players, but he was like, no, you can really kill your players. It's like, well, that's not fun. And he told me a couple other things. Before we get to those, I think Ryan's got a lot of good information on it, because I haven't purchased Rime of the Frostmaiden yet. So I'm kind of, the vessel for you guys who have not read it. So I'm wanting to learn about it and see where it goes. We did talk about it a little before. But Ryan, if you would bring up the good beginnings of Rime of the Frostmaiden for us.
Sure, man. I'd be happy to. So there's just multiple towns in Icewind Dale, which is where this place takes place. Specifically the 10 towns. There are 10 towns in this place. 10 different cities.
There's a Secret 11 one.
Underneath the city, maybe?
Yeah.
There's 10 of these towns, and each town, Wizards of the Coast gave you a quest to put in. And it says after a certain amount of quests, you get to second level, usually after the first quest. After third and fourth level, depending on how many quests you get, that's how you get to those levels. There's a starting quest that introduces a CR3 creature.
Sounds weak.
Yeah, well, first level. This guy will demolish your players. I mean, we talked about previously about your starting health. Many players' starting health can vary between, like you said, like 5 to 12, something along those lines. This guy can hit twice and can do like some pretty rough damage. And in theory, you could say in one turn he could kill a level 1 player. So there was a lot of upsetting, a lot of people saying, what the hell are you doing? This is going to kill a lot of people. And it probably still will. But there's a very important thing that does say, make sure this doesn't start in this quest doesn't take place in this starting town that the players are in.
Good thing to not miss, right?
Yeah, basically saying that once you're supposed to finish at least a couple other quests and venture to other towns before you encounter this guy. Of course, players could ignore all that and go straight for this guy, but they'll get rightfully demolished, I think, at that point.
Got some min-maxers out there like, actually, with my stellar wizard build that I have handcrafted from the gods of DM's Guild, I could probably handle it, which you might be able to.
I think it is. I think this adventure, in a nutshell, and we're not going to get into it, I think is a very well written, very well crafted adventure, and I think this specific thing, and this is similar to a lot of adventure modules, not even just to Wizards of the Coast, DM's Guild and stuff. If you as a DM just pick it up and try to run it right out of the box, you're going to make mistakes, and you might unfortunately think something is skewed poorly or is balanced poorly. And sometimes it might actually be balanced poorly. But if you're just running it out of the box and not reading it word for word and really kind of getting your thoughts in order, then it's very easy to make these mistakes and have it be in the starting town and murder all your players.
We actually talked about that in our module episode too, that when you were running stuff from Strahd, at least story-wise, you made decisions that then were clashing with stuff later on in the module itself. And I guess that goes here as well for mechanics too. You can really overlook small details.
Yeah, you got to read through the whole thing.
Yeah, the type of DM that I am, I totally would miss that if I just looked at the stat block for this thing and I'm like, is there a detail I'm not looking at here?
Am I supposed to put this guy right in front of the players? Or
does he hate broccoli? Will he die? So thankfully Ryan is pretty thorough when he reads through stuff, especially if he buys something he spent money on and he's gonna check it out.
Well, you asked me earlier how I got into balancing and stuff, and I started with the beginner's box little book guide. I started DMing for my girlfriend at the time, and then I moved on to a bigger group, and I had to stop. The only reason I went homebrew and didn't get stuck in the Forgotten Realms or something is because I felt like I was so overwhelmed that I felt like I couldn't break these rules. I couldn't break this story. I had to stick to it. And if I screwed up a story point, then I just ruined a point that happened, 5 pages later. I did that. I would say something, then later I'd finally read through the rest of the book like, oh shit, I just ruined a reveal that happens later, or I put someone's name there that doesn't actually exist until much later in the story.
Well, that's a good thing to bring up now, because something else we wanted to talk about that we were also discussing in the tabletop section of our Discord is the whole idea of settings versus campaigns. Kenneth brought up the question of whether we as DMs prefer to have a campaign fully fleshed out with the story beats put in. It's basically you as a DM sit yourself in it and you speak the words that are in front of you. Or if you prefer Wizards of the Coast to make and for you to DM settings where you can kind of go wild and it's more of a sandbox for you, which was a really fun things for us to discuss at first, because I kind of went all or nothing. And I thought he was like, settings or campaigns, which is better, which wasn't the case. That's kind of how I take most of the stuff. But for
Icewind Dale and Strahd, as well as I would even say Storm King's Thunder, and we've seen a trend here, and Tomb of Annihilation are very much both. They're an adventure module and a setting.
Well, the thing that I suppose kind of struck a chord with me was the whole idea that I think Kenneth would prefer them to leave things open more often, as in write less content and have more of a sandbox feel. And a big part of, I guess, the Dungeon Crawl's philosophy is you can change anything and move it as much as you want. Therefore, I want more to work with, because you can't just go to Wizards of the Coast and say, hey, can you change this or write something here in the sandbox for me? You really can't. You only have what they wrote there. So I would always prefer to have more Wizards of the Coast content, because I can always sandbox on my own, which is a big point that I wanted to make.
Let me read you something here. Lifted straight out of Icewind Dale.
All right.
Okay, hold on. I was trying to say it even slower. I gotta find exactly where it is. Here it is.
He's still looking through. It's like Braxton ad-lib now. Come on, please.
I got it. So in the first pages of Icewind Dale, or Rime of the Frostmaiden, there's a little section called Dissecting the Adventure. And this is no spoiler, so please listen. You can dissect this adventure and use pieces of it rather than the whole thing. Nothing in this adventure is too sacred to tamper with and repurpose to serve your own needs. They even go as far as saying you could strip out the story entirely and just have the map of the fortress or the map of this area and populate with new creatures, whatever would suit your campaign. Sometimes a good map is all a DM needs. And I really appreciated that section because I think a lot of people like me are too afraid to change anything because I think this has to be this perfect, concise package.
Well, I mean, going back to some of the stuff I learned about in school, especially with theater, there are some playwrights who will take legal action if you put on a version of their play that does not protect their original vision. Not throwing any names out there, but they will literally, if they find out, they will pursue you, either get money out of you or end your show.
Shakespeare.
So he'll come from the grave rising, just like the One Piece stuff in Thriller Bark that I've been watching. Just kill him with salt. But, I mean, that's a world that a lot of us have grown up in, is that you don't tamper with stuff. You don't plagiarize. You don't take. It's hammered into you. You leave things as they were. Otherwise, you give credit. So I love that Wizards of the Coast is like, you guys, this is for you. Use it. Throw it around, trash it.
Very much their philosophy. And I love it. Even Chris Perkins, the guy that writes a lot of their stuff, when he DMs live, he will change stuff from the main story and from the main adventure constantly.
Well, that's a sign of good DM too. It takes a lot of guts to jump off in the path and feel like you can kind of make the railroad in front of you with several paths and go down it and turn the train whenever you need to, wherever the players want to go. It takes a lot of skill that you can't get without that repertoire. And I think we talked about that a lot in the last episode too. But Rime of the Frostmaiden
module episode.
Yeah. Rime of the Frostmaiden. I haven't gotten it yet. Kenneth was like prepping me for disappointment, and then Ryan's like, no, it's good. But Kenneth really loves it.
Yeah, I think it's very good. I think it's one of the better ones they've done lately. Not to say the other ones have been bad, but I think it's organized very well. I like my only complaint with it, and this goes with a lot of adventure modules, not for every tabletop thing, is the boxed text that DMs feel like you can't deviate from it. It says read this aloud to your players, and then it's like 2 full paragraphs, and halfway through, 2 of the players are building dice towers and another one's checking their phone. You got to keep it short, concise, and to the point. And sometimes these adventure paths and modules get a little too wordy.
Those weren't specific examples from his campaign. Don't worry. Another player certainly doesn't stick dice to his head. He only does it during like breaks. That player is me.
That player is him. Yeah.
That player is me. I gotta. Sometimes my forehead gets oily, man. You can put the dice on there.
Man, it happens.
Be a dicey unicorn. So for all in all, I guess for Rime of the Frostmaiden, you've and Kenneth, especially with his discussion about how amazing the art is in it.
It is pretty.
I'm excited to check it out. I'll probably get it.
Maybe we'll do a full review on it at some point.
Yeah, I think that would be an awesome idea too. And I mean, if we end up getting, and if and when we get up the live play stuff, we could probably run a bit of it. I know it might take a long time to get through the entire thing.
Yeah.
Because I'm currently writing stuff for what we will be doing for that eventually. So keep an eye out for that. I imagine around November might be when we put the first amount of content up for it, which is getting closer than I would like. Up. It's kind of scary. Something I wanted to just get your thought on again real quick, going back to the balance though.
What's up, man?
Yeah. Kenneth, again, name dropping him a lot. He's probably driving in his car during work. Dude. He's like, oh, they're mentioning me.
He's been
about
in 2
random
episodes.
Encounter tables.
Yeah.
Do you like those?
So random encounter tables, I think they have a place, but I don't think they fit my style of DMing.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So
they're useful if you're trying to like just throw something out there.
Yeah, what I'll do is let's say the players are traveling this day and they're going from point A to point B. I know where they're going more or less. Obviously plans may deviate and they might head a little farther north. And, whatever. I know where they're planning to go. I will probably prepare about 3 or 4 encounters that could happen between point A and point B. and I won't roll. I'll just pick which one makes sense. If they've had a couple fights that day, then I'll just give them a role play encounter. If haven't fought, then I'll give them something to fight, and then maybe have a role play encounter that night. Especially if they're traveling at far distances. Right. Just things, because I like adding to the story. I like adding to the, giving them world building through these encounters. And if you just do random encounters, I don't think that necessarily does that. It would give you more setting knowledge than anything.
Yeah.
A lot of these adventures do give you these random encounters.
So I was going to ask,
gives you a big one.
Rime of the Frostmaiden do that?
Yeah, they have a few, specifically for certain locations. They have a lot of tables for random rumors and stuff along those lines, which I really love. Random rumor tables.
Just run up to the barkeep and ask, heard any rumors? Several times until I get all the quests. I go to the College of Winterhold. It's always one of the first ones you get.
It's interesting reading through these adventure modules and seeing how I would imagine more people play D&D than I guess we do, or how each table is unique and different. Because this, where it explains the rumors, it says stuff like, if a player spends 10 minutes talking to, or spends an hour talking in a city, and they roll a 15 persuasion, they'll learn where this person is, or learn some knowledge about this individual. I would much rather prefer the player actually talk to somebody.
Yeah. I mean, you can still do it that way, but I really do kind of like it can be at your own discretion rather than just an hour or whatever, but meeting that sort of hidden requirement, I like that a lot.
Yes.
Like quite a bit. So if you've been in that city, I don't know if I would just randomly at that mark when I've said, okay, this is enough, kind of organically stop the conversation, say, hey, roll a persuasion check for me real quick. And then if they roll it properly, the guy will go, you're a good, I like you, sir.
Yeah.
This is how people talk. I'm going to tell you a sweet nothing. You can get a quest. Another thing I want to mention about Rime of the Frostmaiden that our friend who's kind of pioneered Discord conversation, Dum Face, he's a cool guy. Come say hi. Come into the Discord. Come say hi. But he mentioned that Rime of the Frostmaiden, the map itself, has hidden things that you can find. So pretend if you're worried about spoilers, pop into, where's the link? I've got it here somewhere. It's dndcelebrationtwenty20.com/# or the pound sign, whatever generation you are from, /map. So again, that's dndcelebrationtwenty20.com/# You head over there and you can pick around, click on stuff if you want a little bit of spoilers on like items that are there if you're savvy, or you can just go on Reddit and get the thread of all the items that have been found. That's a lot of cool stuff you can look at, which is really nice.
I love maps.
Secret preview. They knew that people need a little bit of a taste, but they know we're also explorative people as we play D&D. So they gave us a little mini quest.
Well, how do you feel about random encounters? Like, for example, in Rime of the Frostmaiden, once you get to the wilderness, there's a D20 table. Would you like it if a DM just rolled a D20 and then said, an ice troll comes running out at you,
Well, I mean, I guess from the DM's perspective,
obviously have more build up,
but I mean, I would probably have a DM screen up, and they'd hear the random clack of a dice, and they'd be like, "Oh heck, what's he doing now?" That's always a fun moment. Hackers, and then I roll my thing on the dice, and then I try to lead it in however I would like to. If it's a frost troll or somebody that's cooler, because I know Ryan doesn't like trolls very much.
The ice trolls are all right.
Ice trolls are all right. Okay, they get a pass. So yeah, if it's the ice troll, I'll
no, it's giants I don't like.
Oh, okay.
Trolls have some cool mechanics.
Yeah, I think you can like break off their limbs and they can use them or something. They get debuffs. But this guy comes in, I'll add some flavor, noises, and try to make it a bit more of an organic experience than just somebody burping out a troll yell. So I like them. I think it's good for DMs that fit the quote unquote lazy DM, so to speak. Mm-hmm. Running a module and it's got either a fleshed out encounter with monsters, that's great, or a little bit more of a monotonous travel sequence, because I know that's a big thing in Rime of the Frostmaiden, that traveling through the wintry season is not easy. True. So it's not really something you can blow through. So
the traveling in Frostmaiden obviously is difficult. You're traveling through the thing, but it's specifically in Tomb of Annihilation. It is a literal hex crawl. It even mentions and has the hex crawl map, and you're supposed to be going from hex to hex, and each hex you go to can have a encounter and have a location in it. And that one's all about the random encounters for each step that you take.
That's like JRPGs for sure.
Yes, definitely.
So Frostmaiden is not like that?
It does not. It's not a hex crawl. No, it's specifically in Tomb of Annihilation and in Chult.
Man, I gotta imagine, traditionally for each of those hexes, isn't a hex 1 day of travel?
Depends. You'd have to make sure and check go to the map and see how long it is. A lot of times it doesn't say you how many days. It'll tell you the miles. Then you have to go into the DM's guide and see, okay, if a player, this is how far a player and a party can move in a day, if they're going slow, fast, whatever.
Okay, well, that's really cool. That's something I actually was not aware of, but makes sense considering the roots of role-playing games, the random encounters. I think it's important not to ignore the random encounter, especially since it's so ingrained into the RPG, at least in the virtual space. So I like to try to use them, make them a bit more fun.
Don't poo-poo it. And I would say if you want to make your own random encounters table, you don't feel like it has to be combat encounters. Have some of those, a few of them be role-playing. Go to the Xanathar's guide. At the very back of it, it has a bunch of names, as well as, actually, I don't think it's in the back, but the back has a bunch of fun names. In the DM section, there's a area for encounters, for random encounters by terrain, and even by CR. And a lot of those are combat focused, but there are a few random ones in there that are roleplay only, and I really appreciate that.
Great point to bring up. Was your transition into that don't poo-poo?
Maybe? I don't know.
I'm going to go back and listen to that. But you caught me for a second. But yeah, always check every page of those books because they've riddled it with information for you to look at. And I guess now that we're getting into the wee hours of this episode for this podcast, there was something that you also was, hey, don't snore. Wake up. It's something that you specifically wanted to mention. It was about Pathfinder. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Bring up Pathfinder. Wait, we already talked about that, didn't we?
Well, we mentioned this in previous podcasts, and I think it deserves a mention again. While Pathfinder is generally looked at as the more wordy, I guess it's a little tougher to get into. And I haven't looked at Pathfinder 2, so I can't say anything about it. But I guarantee what I'm about to say is the same for that. Paizo does a really, really good job at making their adventure paths. Yes, I did say paths. They have multiple parts per adventure. One of them has 6 parts. Some have 5, some have 7, whatever. And each one is a very concise story, and you can just you would end it there. And they're usually about 100 pages a pop. But they bleed into each other, obviously, if you do them part 1, part 2, and part 3 back to back. And they are written phenomenally. They have great stories, great maps, and great helpful text that goes along with it. Obviously, since I don't run Pathfinder, I don't know exactly how the balancing works, but I get a lot of inspiration from these. They have books for literally any type of feeling that you're looking for. They have Lovecraftian themed books. They have pirate themed books. They got evil themed campaigns. I mean, I recommend all of them. And that game I mentioned earlier, Pathfinder Kingmaker is one of their adventure paths. In the game, you're basically playing through the adventure path.
All right.
Which is very cool.
That's pretty nifty. And I think the biggest point here that we've driven home too, whether it be balancing or anything that you do, it takes a certain amount of hours or practice to master something and truly get it down. And for me, and I know a lot of people that think like me, I want to create something on my own. I want it to be for my brain. But at the same time, human success is kind of built on the ladder that people before us have built, and you can only
learn from them.
Yeah, most of the time, unless you just find that spark or you get something going, which happens rarely.
You don't have to run what they did, but read and understand why they made the choices they did, and say, okay, why did they put that monster there? Why couldn't they put this other guy there instead? Or why is this trap existing here when it could have existed a few rooms later?
Yeah,
pay attention to all that type of stuff and build it into your own games.
Oh yeah, you don't have to refigure out why or how E equals MC squared. Just know that he made it, get the fundamentals about it, and then go and build the blocks from there.
Damn. Look at us, dude. That's like some philosophy right there.
Welcome to the philosophy crawl. But I think we kind of hit on all the topics we wanted to talk about today. So here, I guess we'll move into the fact that there was no news other than the Rime of the Frostmaiden. So
yeah, Braxton was wrong last week.
Yeah, sorry for missing out on the little blah boop. But
yeah, specifically about the dice. That was the dice got delayed.
Yeah, the dice got delayed. So that was my bad. I need to read
more
things.
But who gives a shit? Am I right?
No one gives no shits today. Not a single one person in this cast gives a shit, except for me. But specifically in regard to you going on to your phone, and at some point, if you're ever on Twitter and Instagram and you feel like giving us a little follow or even just checking us out at Dungeon Crawl Pod, that's our handles for pretty much anywhere you can look. Or if you want to send us something longer, at Gmail, if you want to send us a message about a campaign that you're running, you want our opinion on it, everything under the sun.
Send us your favorite adventure.
Oh, hell yeah.
DM's Guild, WotC, Pathfinder, hell, if it's even like a Call of Cthulhu adventure, I want to know about it.
I'd love that. Especially talking about those sorts of things. I would really, really enjoy talking with the community in that sort of way. So whether you're new here or you've been listening to us through all these episodes, and we appreciate you. You can always send us a message of thanks or hate at thedungeoncrawlpod@gmail.com. If you want to find all those links together, there's a special little short link down in the description. But you can also, if you're specifically looking for that hate mail, do a special thing on iTunes that Ryan loves to tell you about.
Drop on over to the iTunes page. Drop us a 5-star review and just rant and rave. I guarantee you, Apple, especially if you hate Apple, it'll get on Apple's nerves. It'll boost us higher into the podcasting, levels. It'll put us, it'll be easier for us people to find us. And that might sound counterintuitive to your hate, but really what it's doing is allowing more trolls to get into the community and getting you to have other people to hate us with.
If you want to come join me in my descent down the VTuber hellhole, or talk to me about
he's lost it. Run for your lives, everybody.
Don't run. We've got other things you can talk about. I'm super into mechanical keyboards. If you want to chat with me about that, but biggest and most foremost thing, the Dungeon Crawl. If you want to talk about tabletop stuff there too, quick and easy, that's the best place to do it, which should also be in the description there. So that's all she wrote, which means he's been Ryan.
He's been Braxton, as always. What are we doing next week?
What are we doing? I don't even know. He's asking me that because he's like, we need to plan this.
But we will be talking about the best DM's Guild stuff. I guarantee you already a few of them will be Rime of the Frostmaiden related.
Oh, yeah. I imagine people are starting to toss stuff in there. Yeah.
There's some cool encounter stuff
every month.
And there's some cool stuff for DMs to help you out.
Awesome. That sounds like a bueno time. We'll figure out a meaty topic to discuss next time. I really do enjoy doing the stuff that helps you guys get your feet as DMs or players too. So, as always, again, this has been the Dungeon Crawl. Thank you for your ears.
You can turn us off now.